Hi everyone, welcome to eZeLiving.com and another webisode of The Good Doctor. Today I'm here with Dr. Zuhair Al-Fardan, a plastic surgeon from Eternal Clinic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So before we get into the topic of conversation, we have some questions from your previous video about liposuction.
Right.
So Kambiz Purqanad asks, please ask the Good Doctor, can you elaborate on the risk factors of why the procedure can be life-threatening?
Right. As I mentioned in the previous episode, the liposuction can be life-threatening if was done with a high volume. That means if the liposuction more than 10 liters or more, that could be very life-threatening. Or the technical error which happens because we have this long rod when we are liposucking with, and if that one entered in the wrong side, like for instance into the lungs or the heart or the intestine, that could be also life-threatening. That's a technical error. With the other ones, which is if it's high volume liposuction, that can be very fatal.
Okay, so we've got a second question from Kristen Bell, and she asks, how many times can a person do liposuction throughout the course of their life?
Right. To answer this question is twofold. First, if she's asking about the same area, then you can do it one time or two times, even three times, but each time you do it, it gets harder because after each liposuction in that area, there's a lot of scar tissue going to be there and less of fat, and that means when you're trying to break these scar tissue, it's going to be harder and you have risk of irregularity. Now, if she's talking about how many different areas you can do, there's no limit for it, but you have to make sure that the amount is taken each time to be adequate under good guidelines and as recommended, and not very high volume and then you repeat that a few times. So saying that means you can do different areas in the body all throughout your life. It doesn't matter how many times in the same area. You can do it also more than once, but it gets harder and with higher risk of irregularities.
So check to make sure your physician is an expert and he's got a great track record. And the second question, the answer to the second question is you can't repeat the liposuction procedure in the same spot more than once or twice?
Once or twice and no problem. But if you get it right in the first time, it's much better.
Now on to today's subject matter, which is the aging face.
Right.
Human beings, we have a beginning and we have an end, and the journey in the middle is as exciting as it is, has an impact on our body. We don't stay young forever.
Absolutely.
So what happens to the face? Let's start with that.
Right.
And then we get into the what can we do to slow down the aging process.
Sure. Well, the face is a dynamic, and the skin and the soft tissue is a dynamic and life. Which is life tissue, which can actually be affected by different things, something internal and something external. Internal with your aging process, okay, and with your habits and how good health you are and living. The external factors such as environment, smoking, and the sun exposure, all these will affect onto the aging process. They are all speeding it up, and then the more of feature of aging will come. If you look at this picture now, you see they're like when you're in the 20s and when you're 30s and 40s and you progress, you can see there's a progression in the lines of the wrinkles, the depth of the wrinkles, even the whole shape of the face. First, when you're young, your face is more of a triangle, and as if you go older, it becomes more of a square or rectangular type. Now, the aging, when we talk about the aging face, there are three things to talk about: the skin and the skin surface, and the texture. Then you're talking about the volume in the face, the fat distribution and the subcutaneous tissue distribution with the collagen, of course. And then you're talking about even the skeletal, which is the bone. Now, as we age, the texture it loses its elasticity. And in the fat distribution, then with the gravity, you see, for instance, that the natural cheek fat will start to descend down. And if you can see in this other picture where you see half of the face the younger and the other half is the older, and you can see how the descent of the fat and pulls everything down with the gravity.
Right.
Now even the bones start to shrink a little bit as well. But that one is something that you don't see it very fast and takes very long time.
Right.
Now, to reduce this, first we have factors we can influence. such as habits, smoking, and avoiding a lot of sun exposure, and not being sunburned all the time, and as well as trying to have healthy living. Water is very important to keep that the shiny and the elasticity of the skin to be always in a good condition. The aging process is also different. Somebody comes in the 30s and somebody's in the 40s and the 50s is actually totally different. The different method of the how can we slow down the process and what can we do basically to reduce this. We have the surgical, we have the non-surgical, and even in the non-surgical options, what do we do? Somebody now we see people in their 20s, they're starting with the Botox a little bit because they're trying to decrease their dynamic wrinkles. So they're paralyzing the muscle, then there will be less wrinkles appearing. Then when you progress in your 30s, you're going to lose a little bit of volume. So you need to replace this volume where people are using fillers in different areas, trying to reproduce that basically what was before.
Mm-hmm.
And then between mid 30 to mid 40s, then this actually the process cannot be reverted just by the injectables. Then we have also non-surgical options, which is basically doing either thermal radiofrequency or using ultrasonic, which is Althera. Now the difference between them, one of them will affect the skin as well as little bit of the underneath the skin, where the other one, the ultrasonic like Althera, and they call it also lunch break facelift, basically that does not affect your skin texture at all, and all what it works deep inside in the collagen level, in this mass level, which is the level between the soft tissue and the muscle of the face, and that's basically targeting with the ultrasonic in that area. It will heat and it will get more contraction, but the effect you will see it takes up to 3 months where you see your final result of this basically slight lifting.
Is this a one-time procedure, or do they have to come in like a weekly plan? Or?
No, you do it one time, and after 6 months you might need a touch-up, but normally on a yearly basis.
Okay.
So once a year, and that should give you a little bit of time. It's basically buying you time until later on when you might need a proper surgical facelift.
Okay, so we've got two types of facelifts, surgical and non-surgical.
Yeah.
The non-surgical, which is what you're explaining about the technology that's now made it possible.
Absolutely.
So the doctor just puts this devices
and work on it for an hour, and then patient just go back to their
walks
work.
Off,
exactly.
Goes back to their daily activities, whether it's back to the office or back to school or wherever they're going, back home. So that's the less complicated one.
That's less complicated one, yes.
Let's talk about the complicated one, because while it sounds amazing and there are some amazing stories and transformations,
Absolutely.
we've also heard a lot of horror stories when it comes to face lifts and augmentations and changes and putting
Absolutely.
chins and cheeks and all that kind of stuff.
You see, there's always a limit to what we do, and that's why the most of the problem happens when we actually trying to push these limits. Now, as I mentioned, like if somebody in their 30s, they might need a different type of treatment for their aging face than somebody in their 50s or in their 60s. Now, if somebody has a lot of deflation, a lot of wrinkles, and you're trying just basically to fill it with a lot of filler material, or even using some silicone implants like in the chin and in the jaw, in the cheekbones and all these things, and you also put some fat and some fillers, and not all the fillers are actually advisable, and we normally advise the non-permanent fillers such as hyaluronic acid or calcium hydroxide, which is more natural and will
I was actually going to ask you about the types of fillers, because again, there are some horror stories out there where it's actually affected their health to the point where it's created permanent damages.
Absolutely.
So what would you advise?
I'll always advise my patient or anybody in the public, whenever they want to proceed with any procedure with injectables, have to make sure what kind of product they're using, and if these products are legal and approved wherever in the country that they're working in, and to make sure that they've been in the market for a while, because then we know about their complication rate. Not everything new comes up, it's good.
Perfect.
Because we don't know what's the long-term complication.
That's great advice.
Now when we're talking about for instance, the other option, if somebody comes and then they're late 40s or 50s, mid 50s, and they had a lot of deflation, they had laxity, and then the deflation, the laxity is not only affecting the face, it could be affecting the entire face as well as the neck. Then there will be one option for them is the facelift.
Is it safe to operate the neck? Because even in the United States, when you look at facelifts, they try to leave the neck out.
No, it is safe if you know what you're doing and you know the limitation of it. Basically, when we approach the neck, we look at different things. We're looking first, for instance, at the muscle tone, the platysma muscle. We look at the banding. Sometimes you see the two bands coming here.
Yes.
All right, and how much is the skin lax?
Right.
Now, if all this is present, then you know the only option going to be a proper surgical facelift, which is involving the neck as well.
Right.
If somebody comes with just a mid-face deflation and wrinkles and the jowling in that area, then we know, okay, they have an option, either mini face or something what we call also max facelift, where we're using limited dissection and then use the suturing. And so we have different options in the surgical facelift. And the surgical facelift has been evolved for the last probably 80 years, and the more advanced we go with the time, actually we see there is a good indication for the limited facelift, and now we have option not only operate somebody who's really progressed in age and they have a lot of wrinkles. No, some of them which they are in the middle age, and they might benefit from a mini facelift as a surgical ones.
Have you had patients that have come to you and said, I want to look like this?
Absolutely.
What do you tell them?
Well, I actually laugh and I smile and I tell them, you know what? I can't make you the other person. I'm not God. And if you want to be that person, you have to be completely that person, not just in the look of it. Of course, sometimes you can say, okay, we'll try to mimic. What I personally do ask the patient, especially when they're coming for the facelift, I tell them, can you bring your picture about 10 or 15 years ago?
Oh, that's great.
And then I can look how they were and how they progressed.
Right.
And then I can predict a little bit as well. If I'm trying to reverse the effect of the aging, then I might get to that shape again, which is like back 10 years or 15 years ago. And that's what I tell my patient, please bring your picture, but don't bring somebody else's picture because that's not to you.
Brilliant. Well, that's perfect advice to end it off. And if you have any thoughts, comments, questions about trying to look younger, about facelifts, please leave them in the comments sections down below on our Facebook page and tweet us as well. Thank you, Dr. Zuhair, for your wonderful advice as always.
Thank you very much, and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks for watching The Good Doctor on eZeLiving.com, where you can find anything and everything lifestyle.